Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a feeling that is just so incredibly common in our always-on, hyper-connected world: complete and utter burnout. We are constantly pressured to curate these flawless lives, and frankly, it's exhausting. But we're going to explore a total paradigm shift today. We're looking through the ancient, really grounding lens of Japanese philosophy at this concept called Wabi Sabi. Basically, it's the art of finding beauty in the imperfect. So if you've ever felt just totally drained by chasing an impossible standard, this explainer is going to be a massive breath of fresh air. To really kick things off, there's this quote by the legendary street photographer Henri Cartier-Bresson. He once famously and, maybe a little snobbishly declared, "Sharpness is a bourgeois concept." I absolutely love this because it's such a disruptive hook. He was directly challenging our modern obsession with flawless, clinical perfection. Think about it. We spend so much time today trying to filter, edit, and sharpen our lives into this cold, manufactured ideal of beauty. And in doing that, we're completely missing the magic of what's raw and real. And honestly, where does all that obsession lead us? Well, it traps us on what one of our sources aptly calls the Sisyphean hamster wheel of perfectionism. We get totally exhausted by disposable consumerism, that endless cycle of upgrading, and the crushing weight of maintaining these flawless appearances. It's literally a futile race to nowhere. But, hey, recognizing that exhaustion is exactly what sets the stage for the antidote we're getting into today.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, Defining Wabi Sabi, the paradigm shift.
So to truly grasp this, we need to kind of deconstruct the language itself, because these two words weren't actually always linked together. Wabi originally carried this sense of desolation, but over time it evolved. It came to represent a really peaceful, humble, and unmaterialistic lifestyle. Think of the joy of a monk in a wind-torn robe, someone who is perfectly content with very little. On the flip side, Sabi translates so beautifully to the bloom of time. It honors the physical, graceful marks of aging. So picture rusty metals, weathered wood, or a beautiful faded tapestry. When you bring those two together, you get our core definition. Wabi Sabi is the art of finding beauty in imperfection and the natural cycle of growth and decay. It's really this intuitive appreciation for the fleeting, ephemeral physical world. It reminds us that we and the material world all around us are in a constant state of transition. It's not about achieving some final, perfectly polished state. No, it's about deeply honoring the active, irreversible flow of life.
Now, when we contrast this with Western ideals, the differences are pretty striking. The West often values that shiny, mass-produced uniformity, the kind of stuff you'd find in big warehouse stores. But Wabi Sabi? It reveres the unique, time-worn history of items you'd stumble across at a flea market. Actually, in Japanese, there's a really great distinction between kirei, which just means pretty, and omoshiroi, which means fascinating or deeply interesting. It's kind of the difference between the manufactured, obvious glamour of Marilyn Monroe and the mellow, richly aged character of someone like Katharine Hepburn. You can really see how this philosophy manifests in physical objects. Just take a close look at the intentional flaws on this risogama rice bowl. The rim is completely uneven. The beige glaze has these tiny little dents from air bubbles that burst during the firing process. Now, in a hyper-efficient Western factory, this would probably be thrown out as a reject. But in Wabi Sabi, these exact imperfections are what give the dish its raw, authentic character. They're tangible proof of human hands and natural materials.
Moving right along to Section 2, the roots of imperfect beauty.
We can actually trace this evolution perfectly through the history of the Japanese tea ceremony. Super interesting. Originally, this was a highly ostentatious affair, basically a way for warlords to show off imported Chinese luxury goods. But in the 15th century, a major shift occurs. A master named Shuko starts using simple peasant wares. Then, Jo begins using everyday wooden buckets. Finally, in the late 16th century, the legendary Senno Rikyu completely revolutionizes the practice. He creates Wabi-chado. He just outright rejected extreme wealth in favor of rustic, unadorned simplicity, serving tea in these tiny, humble mud huts. There's actually a wonderful, incredibly evocative legend about Senno Rikyu that captures the exact moment the spirit of Wabi Sabi was fully realized. The story goes that as a young apprentice, Rikyu was tasked with cleaning a garden. He worked meticulously, raking the dirt until it was absolutely flawless and pristine. But right before presenting it to his master, Rikyu reached up and deliberately shook a cherry tree. This caused a few pink sakura blossoms to scatter randomly across that perfectly raked ground. That single, unpredictable touch of nature's imperfection, that is what brought true beauty to the scene.
And this elegantly connects the whole philosophy back to mindfulness. These are the 4 principles of tea established during that era: wa, ki, sei, and jaku. That translates to harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. Wabi Sabi is deeply connected to this mindset. It's all about creating a sanctuary where you can escape the chaotic world, strip away your worldly anxieties, and just commune with others in absolute sincerity and peace.
Okay, let's jump into Section 3, Escaping Western Consumerism.
Our sources highlight several incredibly practical, modern antidotes to that consumerist burnout we talked about earlier. First, there's Wabi Sabi interior design, which focuses on embracing worn wood, muted tones, and natural textures that age gracefully over time. Then there's kintsugi. This is the really powerful art of repairing broken pottery with gold. Instead of treating the fracture as a flaw to hide, it's celebrated as a beautiful part of the object's history. And interestingly enough, we also see this exact philosophy in the revival of analog film photography.
Take this specific example of the Polaroid SX70 camera. When you shoot with vintage film, you are no longer in complete control. You basically enter a partnership with the mechanical and chemical gods. The age of the camera, the temperature outside, the chemicals, they all introduce these slight blemishes and a lot of unpredictability. But that's the point. You relinquish the need for pixel-perfect digital sharpness, and instead you embrace the sublime, totally unrepeatable imperfection that comes out. The flaw literally is the feature.
Which brings us to Section 4, Mindful Imperfection Every Day.
Now, I want to clarify something absolutely crucial right away. Wabi Sabi is not an excuse for sloppiness. You can't just leave your bed unmade or ignore a massive coffee stain on the rug and claim you're being highly philosophical. Cleanliness implies respect. A frayed quilt or a beautifully faded piece of wood only takes on that magical, romantic beauty when it is absolutely clear that the object has been deeply cared for over the years. We venerate the gentle wear of time, right? Not dirt and neglect.
So, let's look at how this builds into 3 really simple, actionable steps for transforming your home into a serene sanctuary. Step 1. Embrace natural materials. Bring in wood, stone, and linen that actually tell a story. Step 2. Clean thoroughly and lovingly, really honoring the space you inhabit. And Step 3. Practice shazakisa, which translates roughly to sit down and share tea. Just pause your busy day, invite a friend over, and appreciate a fleeting moment together without the constant distraction of screens or to-do lists.
So, the crucial question I want to leave you with is this. What flaws in your own life or your own home can you begin to view as beautiful marks of time? Are you ready to step off that hamster wheel of perfectionism and finally embrace your perfectly imperfect reality? I highly encourage you to look around your space today with a completely new set of eyes. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and keep finding the beauty in the everyday.